the crime in our communities. This show is produced by Ernestine Stansberry, who is the founder of the International Pro-Life Federation. We know that today the World Health Organization has placed homicide, black-on-black crime, in the top 10 of the top 10 health issues in America. And it comes in at number 2. And so today, on this show, we're going to talk to a lady that I've come to know for years and who's on a crusade to make us aware of what the effects of lead is doing to us in our communities, doing to our children and even adults. And her name is Lillian Abatan. She is the founder of Teachers Against Teen Violence. And she goes around different places, you know, different schools, community-based organizations, and teaching about lead and what its effect is on us and how it is actually a killer in our communities. I call it another silent killer in our community. So how you doing today, Lillian?
I'm just fine this evening, thank you.
That's good. And also we have, just hold on one second, we're gonna get to you. We also have on our show, Brother Terahn Terrell, and he is the host of his own show, The Chicago Celebrity. We'll be asking him, based on his show, what does he believe in his heart that the shows that he presents to his audience, what type of effect is it having on deterring crime in our communities? So we'll be talking to him in a few minutes, but right now we're going to talk to Lillian Abatan. Tell us about lead. What is lead? I mean, we heard about it on a pencil and whatnot, but other than the lead on your pencil, what and where can we find lead?
The lead in our pencils that we use in school is not a heavy metal. Okay. And it's not toxic. So when children put that in their mouth, it's not dangerous. The lead that I'm talking about is a heavy metal, like mercury, cadmium, aluminum, arsenic, and it is very dangerous. It will get into the brain and it changes behavior. And children who have lead in their bodies will have learning disabilities, attention deficit disorder, hearing and vision problems, lower intelligence, and behavioral problems. When they become teenagers, they're likely to engage in criminal activity and become juvenile delinquents and end up in the juvenile justice system. And when they become adults, a lot of them graduate into adult crime. It is well known among people who run prisons that the criminals who, especially the violent criminals, usually have an unhealthy amount of lead in their bodies.
Well, how did they get it?
Well, one of the main sources of lead for young children is said to be the lead paint. Lead paint was in homes, and especially in older homes. It was outlawed in 1978, the same year that we outlawed lead in gasoline. But if we live in homes that are older than 1978, it probably still have lead paint. However, most of the lead paint has been covered up. And if it's covered up with a good paint, and if it doesn't crack, and if it doesn't peel, and if it doesn't fall off the wall, then it's fine, it's not available. But if it does crack and peel and fall off the wall and dust, and the young children crawl around on the floor and put their hands in their mouth, or they pick up the chips and they eat them, and I understand that it tastes sweet.
You know, I was about to ask you, did it taste pretty good?
Yeah.
Because I know my sister used to eat it, and I know she was diagnosed with it when she was young.
That is the case.
And she acted like she liked it.
Oh yes, it's a problem.
Good,
yeah, it's a problem. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this question: other than paint, is there any other place or in the house or on the sink or anywhere where this can be found?
A lot of the older homes also have lead-lined water pipes, or they have lead solder in the pipe and in the fixtures, and lead can come out of the pipes and into the water and infect the water. Also, when water is fluoridated, in other words, if it has fluoride in it, it will leak out faster, and the people will absorb more. So in communities that use or have fluoridated water, you will find more children that have high levels of lead. And it's a real problem in the black communities. A lot of young black children, especially myself and my son, are lactose intolerant. And lead resembles calcium. So and milk is the #1 source of calcium in this country. So if a child doesn't drink a whole lot of milk, he's likely to absorb most of the lead that he comes in contact with.
So now tell me this. If an adult has lead in his system, how will he know?
Do you know anyone with high blood pressure?
Many
Do you know
people.
anyone with arthritis? Do you know anyone who's on kidney dialysis? These are some of the diseases that are caused by lead in adults.
So then that's what the medical doctors should be testing for first then.
Except most medical doctors are not aware that they should be testing for it. I know a doctor who does test for lead, and she says she's never tested an African American living in the inner city that did not have a high amount of lead, higher than they should have.
Well, let's get to the solution then. What do we have to do?
Okay, the treatment for lead, high levels of lead in the body, is called chelation. And chelation is a vegetable-based amino acid that is administered intravenously into the vein. It can be taken orally, especially they do have the oral ones for children. But the most effective way is to administer it through intravenously. And when you're tested and found to have a high level of lead, they will schedule for 10 treatments. And when you are getting the chelation treatments, you also have to take, it's mandatory, required by the manufacturers, that you take nutritional supplements, because the amino acid that goes through the body does also take out, in addition to the lead and the nickel and the aluminum and the arsenic, it will also take out calcium and other minerals, and iron and other minerals.
So you're saying then that one of the solutions to reducing violence in our community is that most of our children, well, all of our children, should be tested for lead.
Absolutely, especially the children who have been tested and are ready to be placed in special education classes. Those children definitely should be tested and treated for lead. But there are many other sources of lead other than just the paint and the water pipes. Toys, you've heard of, there's been a lot of publicity about toys coming in from the Asian country, especially China, that don't have the same standards that we have. And the lead is in the paint that they paint the toys. Newsprint, makeup, lipstick, hair dye, eye makeup, blush, lotions and creams, fingernail polish, children's products, lunch boxes, backpacks, books, bicycles, raincoats.
Hold on, you said backpacks?
Yes.
With
Anything that has brilliant color is likely to have lead, because lead will steady the color so that it doesn't rub off and so that it's permanent.
So wearing the backpacks or carrying them with their hands, it can get in through the skin and things like that?
Absolutely. And if they handle the backpack or the books or the newspaper with their hands and then eat without washing their hands or put their hands in their mouth, yes, they will get the lead. Yes. Children's furniture, kitchen products, dishes, china, glassware, pottery, cooking appliance, Christmas decorations, shower curtains, art supplies, ceramics, the list goes on and on.
So if we don't get rid of these things in our homes and continue to use it, if we were to take the chelation, come right back, right?
Absolutely. The thing about it, in the U.S., they do have manufacturing standards that keeps the lead at a very low level in all these products that I just named. However, with the influx of imported products, and we've heard time and time again that we don't have enough customs agents to test these products when they come into the country, so they get by. So it's up to us as parents and teachers and community activists to warn the community, warn the parents to test these items for lead.
We know you've been going throughout the schools, libraries, and other community-based organizations, making people aware. And if they would just pass it on, I guess it's something we got to do ourselves. We can't wait on the medical industry to do it for us, right?
You are absolutely right. We can't wait on the medical industry, and we can't wait on the government. You're absolutely right, because
we got work to do.
Yes, we do.
And I got to test myself for lead, too.
Very good. I'm happy to hear that.
Maybe I'll play a little better, huh? Anyway, let's talk to my brother Terahn. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks.
All
Thanks
right.
for having me on the show. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, sir. We glad to have you. You know, we were talking about the violence. You heard what Sister
Yeah,
Abatan
very
said.
informative. I didn't know
Yeah.
those statistics about lead as
Most
well.
people
So,
And so now
thank
when you got your artists on your show and whatnot, you can let them know, why don't, go get tested for lead.
Exactly.
You might have lead. Let them know what it's about. But not only that, we're looking at deterrence, to reduce the violence. A lot of times in the summer and whatnot, the children don't know what to do. They hanging out on the corner. Most of the times they can't go play basketball in a whole lot of these different parks because they don't even have nets in the park. Basketball court, nothing. So you have a show called Chicago Celebrity, and at another time you had another show. But I noticed on your show you have a lot of talented people, models, singers, dancers, rappers. How does that help in reducing the violence in the community?
I think what our show does is what our show do is with my producers, we work together as far as when my producers talk to a person, we don't allow them to say the N-word. That's first and foremost.
So it's a clean show.
I won't say clean because it have to be edgy and it's entertainment, so people have to watch.
Okay.
So
what part is not clean then?
No, it's no cursing and no N-word.
Oh, okay.
But we got to think about it. It is cable and you want people to watch, so you have to stay edgy as far as entertainment.
Yeah.
So by doing that, they can come and they can present themselves, whether they have 2 tracks. I would tell them you have to have 2 tracks. And that's for radio anyway, even though we know nowadays a lot of radio stations from Chicago throughout the United States is a monopoly. Some of the same people from Viacom to Clear Channel is owning the same radio stations across the country.
That's right.
So, but I can only, for me, I can only play my part in my 5 cities with 2 million people watching us. And my part is no N-words, no cursing.
Well, I can say this. A lot of our youth have talent.
Of course.
But they don't know how to express it, and they don't even have a vehicle in which to express it in, and nobody to guide it or direct it. And so if you could bring out that gift and that talent in those young people, then they would pursue another type of career than just drugs and shooting and killing in the community, because they'll be more locked into their gift and their talent. And I believe that part is what you bring to your show when you bring those young people in and you let them know you can make it. You can be successful with your gift, with your talent.
Exactly.
And you proved it yourself.
Exactly.
Because of what you've been doing. How long have you been
on with Chicago Celebrity? We're going into our 7th year.
And how old were you when you started?
Man, I started like right after high school.
And you were so busy it kept you off the street, didn't it?
First I went to Hollywood.
Okay.
I was up in ER, done a couple of videos.
Okay.
And I think I was too young and too scared, and I came back. But on my way back, this man, he was a drunk man, and that's tell you can learn from anybody.
That's true.
He was telling me about access channels. I didn't know about access channels because growing up we didn't have cable. So I didn't see access channels, so I got actually grown. So I didn't know. So it took me still a couple of years before I inquired. I was working at the parole office, and I was gonna go back to Hollywood. And this young lady named Crystal, she was like, T, you ever heard about the access channels? And then I was like, no. So I made a phone call, took a couple of courses, and that's how I got started. That's how I got started. And, I put it in 5 cities, and who knows the future.
How many shows you think you done filmed so far?
Wow, about 300 something.
About 300?
Exactly.
And how long you been doing it?
Like I say, this going into our 7th year.
You ever thought about training some of the youth also to do what you do?
What we do, as far as a famous lady once told me, she don't talk to her guests before she interview them. Much respect for that lady, but I learned to differ. I want to get to know that person for a second before we won't be froze on television and time lapsing. And what I do with them, you can have talent, but talent just don't exist in the front. It's a big part of talent. What they see me do sometimes with my producers are late or get stuck, or my directors, even my editors, because I want to see the finished product before it go out, because it's a representation of my market. So I tell them, I show them, this is what I'm doing here, this is what I'm doing there, things like that. So not actually teaching a class, but I will show them and tell them it's other ways besides being a rapper, a poet, a singer. You
Right,
need
they
to know
have
the whole
behind
gamut.
the scenes and all of that. That's right.
Because, and why that's so important, because I believe if you're an entertainer, when you fade away, but like, cause you can be hot for 1 second, and then whether it's 1 year to 20 years, you're not hot. But if you know the whole entertainment industry,
That's
you
right.
can
You gotta know the
produce,
whole
you
thing.
can direct,
That's
you can be
right.
a camera person. So that's very important.
And you also showing them that you can still make it and be successful without using profanity,
Of course.
without cussing and being
Yeah.
extraordinary. You don't have to really sell your body. You can sell your talent,
Exactly.
you see. You know, I had a production myself at one time back in the 80s. And I know the work that's involved in keeping it going and keeping them interested. And I believe, you know, we had about maybe 30, 40 people. We kept them off the street. They were always eager to come in and practice their art, their gift, and their trade. They were just doing it, and then they were ready to do the shows and whatnot, and they were excited, you know?
Exactly.
So they didn't have no time to be out there just roaming the street looking for something to do, you know? And I believe that's what your show does. Can you tell me, what is the age group, basically, of the people on your shows?
Our target market, as far as if you want to get statistical, our target market is from age 25 to youthful 45.
Okay.
But
Youthful
that's
45, I
exactly
like
that's our target market. But walking the streets, because access channels from Washington D.C. to Chicago do not do a rating system.
Okay.
So my rating system depends on, you know, from Facebook to phone calls to the streets.
Okay.
And so when I'm on the streets, everybody from age, I would say from 12 years old to 70-something years old recognize me and say, how you doing? You're doing a good job, things of that nature. So it's for everybody, but we have a specific target market.
Okay. He seems to know his stuff, don't he? He knows it. Now, you know, this is what I'm saying. Health is important. You can have all the money in the world, but if your health is bad, you're going to be spending all your money trying to become healthy and become well. And things about the killing in the community and whatnot, what Sister Abatan told you is just the tip of the iceberg. That's one of the things that is causing some of the things that you see happening in our communities. There are many other areas that we can go in, even some areas that are controversial, such as some of the alcohol that our youth are drinking, some of the beers that our youth are drinking. So what I want to do now is ask Lillian to give us some closing words, and then Brother Terahn to give us some closing words, and then I'll end it after that. Go right
Thank
ahead.
you. I would like to see, as I said before, every young child who is tested and who is about to be placed in a special education class to be tested also and treated for lead, or given the opportunity to be tested and treated for lead. I would like for every young man who gets into the juvenile justice system, whether he's shot somebody, whether he's fighting, whether he's selling drugs, or especially the ones that have shot and killed another person, to really test those people for heavy metals, lead and other heavy metals, and to treat them to help to turn their lives around. This problem can be overcome. This is not an insurmountable problem. And I need to mention that in 1983, I believe, the NAACP sued the paint producers and tried to make them pay or help pay to clean the lead paint out of the homes in the inner cities. The case was thrown out of court. City of Chicago also sued. Their case was thrown out of court. A lot of other cities sued. So in other words, the problem is ours to solve. They've thrown it back into our laps. But the tragedy is most of us are not aware of the problems that lead causes. And it's not just lead. There are other heavy metals, and there are things like artificial colors, artificial dyes, artificial flavor, preservatives. A lot of those things that are in our food also affect behavior. They have a chemical reaction on the brain activity of young people, especially young men. The young women will store the lead in their body, the lead and the heavy metals in their body, And when they get pregnant with the baby, then they pass that on to the baby. So some babies are born with high levels of lead, yes. And they are supposed to be tested within a month after they are born across the country, but it's not funded by every state, so every child is not tested. We need to make sure that every child is tested, and they're supposed to be tested every 6 months from the time that they're born until the time that they're 3. And then after that, every year until they're about 6 or 7 years old. But it's not always done. They have stepped it up in Chicago. Chicago is known to have some of the highest numbers of children with lead in their bodies. The 2 areas in Chicago that have the highest numbers of children with lead in their bodies are the Inglewood community on the south side and the Austin-Lawndale community on the west side. And that's where you see a lot of antisocial behavior.
How can our television viewers get in touch with you?
They can call me. My organization is Teachers Against Teen Violence. They can Google Teachers Against Teen Violence. We do have a website, and they can call me at 773-789-2153.
Thank you. My brother took
I think the media have a great input and challenge as far as what they throw out there. Okay. And media is anybody to me who's reaching over 5 people. So whether it's local access channels, let's not always talk about mainstream media, because local access, this particular channel is seen by over 1 million people a day. So people who produce in local shows to TV giants from a Miramax to Dimension to Viacom Clear Channel, we all have to play our part. That's first and foremost. And second, it starts at home. It starts at home with self-esteem, with us telling that our children and our family members that they are somebody. Okay. Because a person who thinks they're somebody, they are striving for something excellent. So I don't think they're going to run around here committing violence, knowing the consequences of committing a crime is jail. You know that, 9 times out of 10. So I think we can start from there. I think it can start from there, and what you throw out there and what you produce should be of quality. And not to say that it had to be so nicey-nicey, because nicey-nicey in entertainment don't make you popular. But within your hour show, your 30-minute show, you should have some messages of positivity for your particular, for the world, I think.
Well, I do consider television producers, radio and music directors, I consider them to be image makers.
Exactly.
That means they have the power to direct what type of image that they want to put before our viewing audience.
Exactly.
I believe, I have to say it this way, that black producers, black music directors have an obligation based on statistics on the condition of our people to put out something positive that our youth can mirror. When I say mirror, emulate, imitate. And I believe that will have a positive effect on our people in the communities. And how do I know that? Back in the 70s, I believe, maybe the 80s, when they had movies like Superfly, The Mac, and all of those type of movies, I know it had an effect on me. I went and bought me a Superfly coat with the collar. I had on those big stacked shoes, and I was acting like I was the Mac and Superfly and anybody else I could, because that was the image that was projected to us. Then you had Juice, New Jack City, and whatnot.
Set it off.
And soon as that came out, did you see how our youth were acting? So we have an obligation as a producer, even as a host, to make sure that even though you said it's not major TV, well, even if it's not that, we have an obligation to present and project to our brothers and sisters a positive image that they can emulate and pick up and move forward in life. That will actually bring down crime. That will also make our neighborhood a community again. You wanted to say something?
Yes,
quickly,
I would like the audience to know that I am available to speak to church groups, school groups, community organizations, block clubs, family reunions if you want. Anywhere there are a group of people that live in the inner city that think that they could benefit from this information.
Okay.
We've got to get the word out.
Do you have a phone number you want to give them?
They can visit us on Facebook at Chicago Celebrity 2007 at yahoo.com or call our 24-hour hotline number at 312-404-0137.
And you've heard it here. Again, I say this is just the tip of the iceberg. We can talk all day, but most of us should become scientists in the laboratories of our own life. Don't give our lives over to all of our doctors into the medical field, because a lot of times those doctors and those scientists, you don't know the difference because they both seem to wear the same kind of lab coat. So you need to be your own scientist. You need to look at holistic ways of curing yourself. You need to look back at alternative ways, go back to nature, go back to the things that are natural to us. So you heard it here first. We just hope you take it into your heart and into your head and do some of these things that you heard us say that you need to do or that we need to do. So until we meet again, I'm just here to say, see you later and see you next time. ERNESTINE Stansberry, the International Pro-Life Federation, is our sponsor and is the true host of this program. And I'm thanking her right now that she allowed me to host this in her stead. So thank you all again, and we'll see you real soon. Peace.